Matthew chapter 5 is a cornerstone of Christian teaching, forming the beginning of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. This chapter is profound because it lays out the fundamental principles of the kingdom of heaven, offering a radical reorientation of values that contrast sharply with worldly standards. To appreciate its depth, we must delve into its key teachings and connect them with other biblical promises, reaffirming God's faithfulness and love. The chapter opens with the Beatitudes, a series of blessings that Jesus pronounces on those who embody the values of the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Matthew 5:3. This emphasizes humility and spiritual dependence on God, reminiscent of God's promise in Isaiah 66:2. These are the ones I look on with favor, those who are humble and contrite in spirit, and who tremble at my word. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Matthew 5:4. Jesus assures comfort for those who grieve, echoing Isaiah 61:1-2, where God promises to comfort all who mourn and provide for those who grieve in Zion. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Matthew 5:5. Meekness here is about strength under control and gentleness, aligning with Psalm 37:11. But the meek will inherit the land and enjoy peace and prosperity. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Matthew 5:6. This beatitude promises that those who earnestly seek righteousness will be satisfied, reflecting God's assurance in Jeremiah 29:13. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Matthew 5:7. This highlights the principle of reciprocity in God's kingdom, seen in Psalm 18:25. To the faithful you show yourself faithful. To the blameless you show yourself blameless. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Matthew 5:8. Purity of heart is central to a close relationship with God, echoing Psalm 24:3-4, where only those with clean hands and a pure heart may stand in his holy place. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Matthew 5:9. This underscores the importance of reconciliation and peace, aligning with James 3:18. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Matthew 5:10. This beatitude promises that suffering for righteousness' sake leads to eternal reward, echoing 2 Timothy 3:12. In fact, everyone who wants to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted. Jesus continues by calling his followers the salt of the earth and the light of the world in verses 13-16. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? Matthew 5:13. Salt preserves and flavors, symbolizing the positive impact Christians should have. Similarly, you are the light of the world, Matthew 5:14, calls believers to shine their light before others, reflecting God's promise in Isaiah 42:6 to make his people a light for the Gentiles. In verses 17-20, Jesus declares the fulfillment of the law and the prophets. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. Matthew 5:17. This assertion aligns with God's promises throughout the Old Testament, including Jeremiah 31:33, where God promises a new covenant written on the hearts of his people. The rest of the chapter contains teachings that deepen the understanding of righteousness, moving beyond external adherence to the law to the transformation of the heart. Jesus intensifies the commandments, addressing anger, lust, divorce, oaths, retaliation, and love for enemies. In each case, he calls his followers to a higher standard of internal purity and love. For instance, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, "You shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment." Matthew 5:21-22. This teaching aligns with God's desire for inward righteousness, as seen in Jeremiah 17:10. I, the Lord, search the heart and examine the mind, to reward each person according to their conduct, according to what their deeds deserve. Finally, Jesus' call to love enemies in verses 43-48 is perhaps the most radical. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. Matthew 5:44-45. This teaching embodies the ultimate expression of divine love and echoes God's merciful character, as seen in Jeremiah 31:3. I have loved you with an everlasting love. I have drawn you with unfailing kindness. In summary, Matthew chapter 5 is profound because it encapsulates the core of Jesus' teachings, emphasizing the values of the kingdom of heaven. It calls believers to a higher standard of righteousness, rooted in internal transformation and love, fulfilling and surpassing the Old Testament law. This chapter profoundly impacts Christian ethics, urging believers to embody humility, mercy, purity, and love, aligning with the broader biblical narrative of God's promises and faithfulness.